Hey you, welcome to the deep dive. Let's be real. Life in the cab comes with its own set of pressures, right?
Absolutely. You're juggling deadlines, keeping your equipment running.
And trying to stay in the know without getting buried under like a mountain of information.
Yeah, exactly.
So consider this your shortcut. We've taken a hard look at what's happening in the industry, pulled out the crucial bits, and we'll serve it up without all the complicated stuff.
Exactly. We know your time is valuable. I mean, whether you're a veteran of the road or maybe just starting out. Our goal here is pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
We want to unpack some of the key developments affecting trucking right now, explore different angles on these changes.
And most importantly, connect it all back to your daily experience behind the wheel.
Right.
So today we're going to dig into a few really relevant areas. We'll look at some shifts in the hours of service rules.
Uh-huh. Like in Kansas and Idaho.
Yeah, particularly if you're hauling fuel in Kansas or dealing with those idling regulations in Idaho. We're also going to shed some light on the concerning practice, the use of fake company addresses. We'll talk about why that should be on your radar.
That's a big one. Definitely needs attention.
And with Brake Safety Week just around the corner, we'll give you a heads up on what inspectors will be focusing on this year.
Always good to be prepared for that.
And finally, we'll touch on the ongoing discussions, the debates really, around California's zero-emission truck plans.
Which is a hot topic, to say the least.
It is. It's a lot. I know. But we're aiming to give you a clear, connected understanding of what's going on.
And these issues, they aren't happening in isolation, are they? A change in idling laws affects your comfort, maybe potential fines?
Right. While the fuel shortage has a direct impact on delivery times, everyone feels that.
We want to help you see how these pieces fit together, understand the broader implications for you. Our mission, really, is to give you information that's not just interesting, but genuinely helpful in navigating your career.
Okay, let's dive in then. Starting with Idaho. They've recently made a change to their idling rules,
Uh-huh.
which I think at first glance might feel like a pretty welcome shift for drivers.
Well, what's interesting here is how directly this impacts a driver's well-being. For a long time, anti-idling laws, I mean, they were often meant well, but they put drivers in a really tough spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You needed rest, but shutting down the engine in extreme heat or cold, it made getting quality sleep almost impossible.
Right. Well, you're freezing.
Or freezing. And for those hauling refrigerated loads, there was that constant worry about keeping the cargo at the right temperature and avoiding penalties.
Yeah, you're exhausted, you pull over, but you can't actually relax and get decent rest because the cab's like an oven or an icebox.
Exactly.
And for reefers, it was a double bind, keep the cargo cold, risk a ticket. The new rule in Idaho seems to directly address this finally.
Yes, the key point is that Idaho now allows idling during rest periods and when hauling refrigerated loads.
Okay.
But it's important to understand this isn't like a green light for unlimited idling everywhere all the time. It's a specific allowance for those essential situations.
Gotcha. And like with any rule change, there are different ways to look at this. I can imagine most drivers are feeling pretty positive about it.
Oh, for sure.
Finally being able to get proper rest without being uncomfortable and without that constant fear of a fine hanging over you.
That's certainly the most immediate and understandable reaction. Quality rest is so important for safety on the road. A well-rested driver is just a safer driver, period.
No question.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you mentioned, other perspectives come in. Environmental groups, they'll naturally have concerns, right, about potential for increased emissions, more fuel consumption. Some drivers might also prefer to invest in EPUs, those auxiliary power units.
Right, the little generators.
Yeah, to manage their costs and maybe their environmental footprint that way. And then you've got folks living near truck stops who might be concerned about more noise.
It really brings home that point, Hervey, from life. As a trucker, often makes you got to see issues from all angles.
That's a great point.
This one change seems simple, right? But it actually touches on driver comfort, keeping goods fresh, environmental worries, even local noise levels.
It's all connected.
And for you listening, it directly affects your ability to get the rest you need, which we all know is crucial, and it can save you from unnecessary fines. It's really about making regulations more practical for what life on the road is actually like.
Absolutely, making things workable. Now let's turn our attention over to Kansas. They recently took a different kind of regulatory step
Okay.
in response to a very specific challenge: fuel shortages.
Ah, right. It sounds like fuel supplies were getting tight in Kansas, and the state decided to act fast by temporarily waiving hours of service regulations.
But just for some drivers, yeah.
Exactly. Only for those hauling fuel.
The urgency here is key. When the fuel supply chain gets disrupted, I mean, the impact is felt everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
From regular drivers trying to fill up their cars to essential services like hospitals, emergency responders.
Everything grinds to a halt.
Pretty much. So Kansas recognized this and issued an emergency order specifically aimed at getting more fuel deliveries made quickly. Bottleneck crisis, basically.
But it's important to emphasize, just like with the Idaho idling rule, this wasn't an open pass for every trucker out there.
No, definitely not.
This waiver was specifically targeted at that fuel shortage and was meant as a temporary fix, a Band-Aid almost.
Right. And crucially, even with the waiver, drivers were still expected to use reasonable judgment when it came to fatigue.
Which can be subjective, but yeah. Nobody wants to solve a fuel shortage by increasing the risk of accidents due to tired drivers. That helps no one.
Well, this raises an interesting point about balancing those immediate needs with long-term safety, doesn't it?
It really does.
Fuel haulers, they likely welcomed the chance to make more deliveries, maybe earn more money. The public probably wasn't even really aware of the waiver itself, but they definitely benefited from fuel being available. But then, safety advocates understandably raised concerns about the potential for increased driver fatigue, especially when you're hauling something like fuel.
Yeah, that's critical cargo.
And fuel companies, dispatchers, they were likely relieved to keep things moving, but also probably worried about liability.
You bet.
And law enforcement. They were in a tricky position, instructed to honor the waiver, but still needing to watch for clear signs of driver impairment.
Again, so many different viewpoints at play.
Yeah.
You can see how the pressure of a fuel shortage could lead to a decision like this, but you immediately think about the potential downsides.
Right. The trade-offs.
For drivers, it highlights the kind of pressures that can come up during emergencies and just how important it is to prioritize safety, even when there are incentives, real incentives, to push harder.
It's that constant juggling act, isn't it? Getting the job done versus doing it safely. And as Hervey from Life, as a trucker, often points out, it's just crucial to see these situations from all angles. In this Kansas case, it was about balancing that critical need for fuel with the ongoing commitment to safety on our roads.
Okay, let's move on to something that might not grab the big headlines, but it's a real issue with serious consequences for drivers. Trucking companies using fake addresses on their FMCSA filings, the official paperwork they have to file with the federal government.
Right.
This might sound like just, a minor paperwork problem, but it's actually much bigger than that.
Oh, absolutely. What's interesting here is how these seemingly small details, these addresses, can have such a huge impact on accountability and safety in the whole industry.
Yeah. How so?
Well, these aren't usually just innocent errors, Often they seem to be deliberate attempts to avoid responsibility when a company uses a fake address.
Like a P.O. box or something unrelated.
Or just a vacant lot or mail drop. It becomes incredibly difficult for regulators to send official notices, for law enforcement to follow up on violations. Okay. And even for you, the driver, to track down the company if you're owed wages or benefits.
Ah, okay. It's like these companies are intentionally trying to be ghosts. And the people who often get hurt the most are the drivers themselves.
That's exactly it.
We're talking about situations where drivers end up not getting paid, maybe stranded far from home, with no real way to hold the company accountable.
Precisely. These ghost companies, as you called them, they can also operate unsafe equipment, maybe hire unqualified drivers because they know it's just harder to track them down.
Which puts everyone at risk.
Puts the drivers at risk, endangers the public. Plus, it skews safety records, insurance risk assessments, which unfairly impacts the legitimate carriers, the ones actually following the rules.
Right. So the good guys get penalized in a way.
Yeah. Small and mid-sized carriers, they're understandably frustrated because they're competing with companies that are essentially operating outside the system. It creates this really uneven playing field.
And undermines the whole system designed to keep everyone safe. For you listening, this is definitely something to be aware of when you're looking for a job or maybe even checking out a broker.
Definitely.
If a company's information seems vague or maybe too good to be true, that should probably raise a red flag.
This brings up an important point about doing your homework right. The FMCSA acknowledges this issue. They say they're working on ways to improve their verification processes.
But it's tough.
It is a challenge. That's why it's so important for drivers to be proactive. The articles we looked at suggest some practical steps you can take.
Like what?
Like search the company's address online, Google Maps, Street View even. Call their listed terminal number, see if someone actually answers, if it sounds like a real place.
Okay.
Check their DOT and MC numbers, make sure they're active and match up if anything feels off.
Trust your gut.
Yeah, trust your gut. It's probably best to be cautious.
It's a reminder that in this industry, sometimes you really have to be your own investigator just to protect yourself. It's a shame these loopholes exist, but it's good to know that there's pressure to close them.
Yeah, hopefully. Now let's shift our focus to something that's coming up pretty soon for everyone on the road. Brake Safety Week.
Yes.
It's an annual event, we know, but this year there's a specific area that inspectors will be paying extra close attention to.
That's right. Mark your calendars, folks, because Brake Safety Week is just around the corner, and this time, the focus is squarely on brake linings and pads.
So if you've been meaning to check those, now is definitely the time.
Don't put it off.
What's interesting here is how targeted these safety checks can be. During Brake Safety Week, enforcement officers will be conducting detailed brake inspections.
The level eye inspections, usually.
Often, yeah. And if your truck doesn't meet the standards, it'll be placed out of service right there until the problems are fixed.
Which means delays, costs.
Exactly. And this year, the CVSA, that's the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, the group that works to standardize safety rules across North America, they've announced that inspectors will be closely examining brake linings and pads.
Okay, so what are they looking for specifically?
They'll be looking for excessive wear, cracks, contamination like oil or grease, and any missing parts. Really getting into the details.
So it's not just a quick glance. They're really going to be looking closely. And we all know what an out-of-service order means: lost time, lost income.
Not to mention the safety risk itself if your brakes aren't right.
Absolutely.
Now, this brings up different perspectives, of course. Owner-operators, company drivers often have mixed feelings, right?
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
They understand safety is crucial, but sometimes these inspection blitzes can feel very strict, maybe even like they're being targeted, especially for minor things. Fleet owners, on the other hand, often see Brake Safety Week as, well, a good reminder, a way to make sure their entire fleet is in good working order. It protects their reputation, helps avoid bigger problems down the line.
Prevents bigger repair bills later, too.
Could be. And environmental advocates also support it because well-maintained brakes actually contribute to better fuel efficiency. Less dragging, you know?
Interesting point. But shippers and brokers?
They might just be concerned about potential delays if trucks start getting taken off the road for repairs.
Right. It's that constant balancing act again. Nobody wants unsafe trucks on the road. That's clear. But the timing of these blitzes can definitely throw a wrench into your schedule.
No doubt.
For you behind the wheel, this is just a direct reminder. Do thorough pre-trip inspections every single time, but maybe pay extra attention to your brakes right now.
Yeah, really get in there and look. Check the slack adjusters, listen for air leaks.
It might even be a good idea to get them professionally checked by a mechanic before the blitz starts, if you can.
Good advice. Some shops even offer specials beforehand, trying to help drivers avoid those out-of-service orders. Worth looking into.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Taking a proactive approach to maintenance and keeping good records of that maintenance, that can really save you a lot of headaches. It's about taking control, making sure your equipment is up to par before the inspectors start their work.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears now to maybe a longer-term issue, but one that's generating a lot of discussion in the industry.
California.
Specifically, their push for zero-emission heavy-duty trucks. It sounds like there's been some recent pushback on this at the federal level.
Yeah, that's right. What's interesting here is this real tension between, important environmental goals and the practical day-to-day realities of the trucking industry. California has always been kind of a leader in setting tougher emission standards, maybe pushing the envelope.
For sure.
And their plan to accelerate the shift to electric and hydrogen-powered heavy-duty trucks is a really significant move. But the recent vote in the House of Representatives
To repeal the EPA's approval of California's plan.
Exactly. That vote really highlights the deep disagreements on this issue. It's far from settled.
So the House basically said, hold on a second, California may be too fast. What's the main reason for that resistance? Is it just cost?
Cost is a huge factor, but it's also about the current lack of sufficient charging and hydrogen fueling infrastructure.
Right. Where do you plug these things in, especially on long routes?
That's the question. And then there's the potential impact on smaller trucking companies, owner-operators, who might really struggle to afford these expensive new technologies. The timeline California has proposed is just much more aggressive than the federal targets.
And it's important for everyone listening to remember, this vote in the House, it isn't the final say. Not by a long shot.
No, absolutely not. It still has to go through the Senate and then could be signed or vetoed by the president. So the situation is still very much evolving. But the different viewpoints on this, they're quite distinct. Truckers and small fleet owners generally seem to feel a sense of relief at this pushback, mainly due to those cost and infrastructure challenges we mentioned.
Understandable.
Major fleets, they have a more mixed perspective, it seems. Some have already started investing in zero-emission vehicles, especially for their California routes.
Because they had to or saw the writing on the wall?
Right. But even they often want more realistic timelines for the broader transition across the country. Environmental groups, on the other hand, are understandably frustrated. They see this as a setback for cleaner air efforts.
And lawmakers.
Divided, really divided on the economic implications versus environmental protection. And shippers, retailers. They face uncertainty about future transportation costs, the types of trucks their carriers will even be allowed to use.
Yeah, and for an independent owner-operator, someone already dealing with tight margins, the prospect of a massive upfront investment like a new electric truck, that must be incredibly daunting.
Hugely daunting. The numbers are just eye-watering for many.
So this really hits home for you out there on the road. It's about the future of your equipment, the truck you drive, and the potential for really big changes in how the industry operates.
Right. And while zero-emission technology is likely where things are headed in the long run, I mean, most people agree on that direction.
Yeah, seems inevitable eventually.
The current debate is really about how quickly that transition happens and whether it's economically feasible and practically achievable for everyone involved, not just the giant fleets.
And if the infrastructure will be there to support it.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe billion-dollar question. This raises an important point about looking ahead, though.
How so?
Well, while the immediate outcome of this specific legislative pushback is uncertain, the overall trend towards cleaner transportation is pretty undeniable.
Yeah, it's not going away.
So staying informed, thinking about how these potential changes might affect your business or your career down the line, that's really important right now. Planning ahead as much as you can.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears one last time, we want to touch on something that Hervey from Life as a Trucker and also the folks at retirefromtrucking.com really emphasize.
Yeah. Good resources there.
And that's about taking control of your financial future and making the most of your time, even when you're out on the road.
What's interesting here is this really proactive approach to your overall well-being, not just your driving job.
Right.
Trucking can be incredibly demanding. We all know that. Physically, mentally, financially.
Definitely.
The idea of building additional income streams, maybe using technology like AI during your off-duty hours, it offers a real opportunity for drivers to create a financial cushion.
A buffer.
A buffer, exactly.
Yeah.
And work towards retirement maybe on their own terms, not just waiting for the traditional path.
It's about using that downtime wisely, isn't it? We all know that your time isn't just for getting freight where it needs to go. It's your life.
It is.
Learning new skills, maybe building some kind of online income.
Yeah.
That can provide a real safety net against the ups and downs of the freight market.
Which we know can be pretty volatile.
Yeah, and give you more control of your future in general.
This really ties into our overall theme today, I think, about supporting drivers. It's not just about the immediate rules and safety concerns, important as those are. It's also about your long-term financial security, your personal growth.
That perspective of managing your time effectively.
Yeah.
It's not just about hitting shipper appointments.
No. It's about investing in yourself, investing in your future, using that downtime constructively.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's just quickly recap what we've covered.
Okay.
We've looked at changes in idling and HOS rules, Idaho and Kansas, that directly affect your day-to-day work and your well-being.
Right. Comfort and fatigue management.
We've highlighted the serious dangers of those fake company addresses and hopefully given you some ways to protect yourself.
Due diligence is key there.
We've reminded you about Brake Safety Week coming up and the specific focus this year on linings and pads.
Get those brakes checked.
And we've touched on the ongoing debates around zero-emission trucks in California and what that could mean down the road for the whole industry.
Big changes potentially on the horizon.
And what's interesting, as you said earlier, is how all these seemingly different issues are actually connected.
They really are. They all touch on safety, regulations, economic pressures, and just the constantly changing landscape of the trucking industry.
Our aim today has been to give you a clear picture of these different aspects, show you those multiple angles Herbie talks about.
And hopefully show you how they impact your life on the road.
Ultimately, we really want you to feel informed, respected, and supported. The information we've shared today is intended to empower you
Yeah.
to make informed decisions and navigate the challenges and changes in the trucking world with, well, with confidence.
And this leads to maybe a final thought for you to consider. How can you take a proactive approach to managing your time and developing your skills? Not just for the demands of your current job, right? But to actually build a more secure and fulfilling future for yourself in this industry, whatever changes come.
That's a great question to chew on. Think about what truly seeing issues from all angles means for your career, your finances, your overall well-being.
And we definitely encourage you to check out those resources we mentioned, lifepastotrucker.com and retirefromtrucking.com for more information and support as you continue your journey.
Lots of good stuff there. Thanks for tuning in.